Okay.
Mishpatim means judgments.
Right, we're in the Parsha Mishpatim, which means judgments, correct. Okay, so what happens is, it's interesting, we went from the Ten Commandments, and then how to build the Mishkan, how to build the Mizbeach. Next thing we jump into is the laws, the judgments. And everybody asks, why are we dealing with judgments now? Why wouldn't we just continue with the story as it were, going to the building of the Mishkan? And on top of that, the laws seem to be a mishmash of different laws put together. What's going on there? So the Art Scroll gets a very interesting introduction into this parsha, where it says the juxtaposition of this sidra, dealing primarily with civil and court law, tort law, with the Ten Commandments and the laws of the altar, provide a startling insight into Judaism. To God, there is no realm of religion in the colloquial sense of the word. Most people think of religion as a matter of ritual and spirituality. Western man differentiates between church and state. The Torah knows no such distinction. To the contrary, all areas of life are intertwined, and holiness derives from halachically correct business dealings no less than from piety in matters of ritual. The sages teach that one who wishes to be a chassid or a devoutly pious person should be scrupulous in matters of civil and tort law. For in Judaism, the concept of the temple is in the courtroom as well as in the synagogue. So that's the introduction that our school is giving. It's a very nice thing because most people do say separation of church and state, and we just don't have that. We never did, we never will. So here we start. It starts, Eila hamishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. These are these judgments that you will place before them. So Rashi says, why? He asks a question. Lama nismacha parsha dinan leparsha mizbech. Why do we connect the section dealing with laws to the section dealing with mizbech? Lomar lecha, to tell you or to teach you, shetasim Sanhedrin etzem mizbech. They're giving us a direction here to say that the Sanhedrin should be placed next to the Mikdash. In other words, they should be, and they were, in one of the sections of the temple. Then here is the part that gets everybody. Ashitasim livneihem, that you will put before them. So it's a very beautiful midrash. It says, Armalo Kadosh Baruch Hu Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Lo talel datcha. You shouldn't think. Lomar she'eshna lahem perak v'halacha beta gimel pamim, that I'll teach these people. You don't have it. I'm in Rashi right now. Okay? So it's right. Actually, you can follow the Rashi because it's right there. But it says, you may think that I could teach the people the law or the chapter 2 or 3 times, ad shetehei sador b'fihem, until it's fluent in their mouth. Ve'eni matriach atzmi lahavina, but I don't have to trouble myself to make them understand it. No, I can make them memorize it. So Tame, I don't have to understand the reasons for the commandments and its explanation. So that's why it says, Asher tasim lifnehem, that you will put before them keshulchan aruch, like a set table, umuchal ne'echol lifnei adam, and it'll be prepared for everybody to eat. So in other words, when we teach Torah, what Hashem was teaching Moshe was, it's not enough just to teach them what the law is. Really what we have to do is give them a foundation, understanding, a hashkafa, a proper philosophy as to what the mitzvah is and what the mitzvah is supposed to do. Now we can't give a reason for the real reason for the mitzvah, because we don't know the real reason for the mitzvah. We only know what Hashem tells us, and sometimes the reason is stated. Normally it's not stated. But what happens is, if I'm explaining the law, as the laws that are coming up about slavery, Hebrew slavery, or even witchcraft, or any one of the other laws that we're going to see in this parsha, or any law that we have, what Hashem is telling us is, you need to give people a background so that they will follow it. Because what happens? I tell you to do something. I always pick on the speed limit. I tell you to go 55 in New York. Okay, that's in New York is, I think, 55 the speed limit. Okay, the old style. Nobody goes 55 unless it's a traffic jam. People are going 70. It's easily 70. And the cops aren't stopping anybody because it's just what we do today. So what happens? We don't understand why they said 55. If the road can take 70 or 60, why are you picking up 55? For those who remember back to the old days, it was in the time of Jimmy Carter, and the experts told us, we had gas crunches in those days, so the experts told us that the optimum speed in which to save gas was 55. If you go 55, you'll get the best gas mileage. So that was the speed limit. That's what it was based upon. So when we have it here in Indiana at 70, we're not listening to what Jimmy Carter's people told us. And whether or not he was right, I have no idea. I just remember that was the rationale behind it. Okay. Now we have to save gas. We're supposed to keep our tires inflated. That was how President Obama told us to save gas when it was $4. You have to inflate your tires properly and so on and so forth. He never tried to shut down the speed limit though. So that's interesting. But like I said, with all these laws, we tried, if I understand the reason for the laws, then I'm more apt to follow it. Now, it doesn't negate Nasa V'nishma. We said at Sinai, Nasa V'nishma, which means, as the rabbis interpret it, we will do it and then we'll understand it. In other words, whether or not I understand the law, I still have to follow it. And Hashem is really contradicting that. He's saying, when I teach it, I should give you some reason to follow it. Doesn't mean let's say you don't agree with the reason, tough luck. You still have to follow it. That's as simple as it gets. But I should do everything possible to make it like a set table, so that when you can imagine coming to somebody's table, and what they do is they throw, I remember hearing this from, I forget who, a speech teacher, I forget what's his name, I forget his name already. But he said, imagine you come to a Shabbos table, and the woman said, I didn't have time, but if she puts on the table a raw chicken, vegetables, everything's raw. She said, I got home late, I didn't have time, but if I would have had time, it would have been a great Shabbos meal. Okay? It's clearly not a set table. When we're giving speeches, we're supposed to have it well thought out in our minds as to what we were doing and what we would present to people. I'm trying to think of his name. I can't think of this person's name. But he was one who got that in our minds to say whatever we're teaching has to be clear, crystal clear to the person. And that way, like I said, maybe they'll listen. If you're not clear, if you're all over the place, clearly they will not listen. They'll get lost. So that's what the Torah is telling us when Hashem says, Ve'ela Mishpatim, these are the judgments, Shetasim Lifneihem. Simple. That you should put before them, make it clear to them. Okay? That's simple understanding. Now the Baal HaTorah, though, has a lot more to say about this. He goes deeper into it. And he says, Ve'ela, the word Ve'ela is an acrostic for V'chayev Adam Lachkor Hadin. A person is obligated to search into the law, to know what the law is properly. In other words, what happens? You come to me and you ask me halacha, and I shoot from the hip, and I give you the halacha, without even knowing whether I'm right or wrong. I think I'm right, but I don't look into it. And every single question that you or anybody asks potentially has some nuance that I'm not thinking of, or that I didn't hear before. But I get a general question, so I say, okay, generally this is like this. Once we start getting into the specifics, that's when I have to be looking into every possible permeation of that in order to give you the proper law. So that's the first thing he learns. Ve'ela, that a person is chayev, he's obligated to look into it like that. And then it says, Mishpatim, what's that an acrostic for? Hadayan mitzaveh sheyaseh peshara terem yaseh mishpat. Remember, the acrostic works like this. Hey, the letters of the word, each letter represents a different word. So if you look at a Mishpatim, it comes out to Hadayan, the judge, is mitzaveh, is commanded sheyaseh peshara, that he will make a compromise. Terem yaseh mishpat, before he makes judgment. What is the ultimate type of judgment? If two litigants come before me as a judge, I'm supposed to listen to them and then try to make them come to some compromise. Versus me saying, you're right and you're wrong. Why? Why would it be better?
Both sides get some kind of satisfaction.
Correct. And again, you're more likely to listen, you're more likely to say, okay, the system does work, and therefore I'm going to continue on with the system. As compared to what we do today, when I shouldn't say that. I think judges even today try to go to Peshara, even in the secular courts. They try to get a compromise. I think they try to even today. But that's what we're supposed to try to do. Again, it shows justice. Everybody's happier with a compromise. And if there can't be a compromise, then we have to rule accordingly. But that's what you're getting from the word HaMishpatim. Then it says Ashir, what's the word that? Okay, Aleph, Shin, Reish, what is that telling us? Im Shnehem Rotzen. That means if both of them desire it, they have to both desire to have the justice. Okay? So then it says Tasim, that is Tishma Shnehem Yachab Min Devarim. You have to listen to both of them speaking. Notice I can't just listen to one and not the other. I have to hear both of them equally. Lifneihem means lo pnei nadiv yahadir hitnakir mehem. You shouldn't be looking at one person nicely and being strange to the other one. Notice I have to treat them both equally in the court. Then the Balatram says, why does the Torah connect Mishpatim to not going up on the steps of the altar, not making steps on the altar? Loma, it's to tell us, have him etunim bedin, that one must be careful in judgment. They have to think about it a lot. Kolomar is to say, lo ya'alu el yelchu v'maton. You shouldn't go up quickly. Rather, you should walk up with thought. You should walk up. You should go with thought. And ma'alot, the numerical value of the word ma'alot, ma'alot is metunim, that one has to be deliberate. That's what the word I was looking for, deliberate, to be deliberate in judgment. Okay. Then it says, and then it says, samach mishpatim. Again, we're connecting this chapter to lelohei kesaf, to the gods of silver. So what's going on there? Lo marshalo yimane dayan bishvil mamon. That when one is appointing a judge, it shouldn't be because he has money. What do you usually put up there, right? So you're appointing him because he can pay you well. Whatever the case is going to be, you just want to stay away from that. And then it says before that, that you're not allowed to when you're making the altar, to use metal to cut the stones. So why is that connected to this? To teach us that the judge should see himself as if a charav munachat lo al yirecho, as if the sword is right there on his thigh. Again, it's interesting language. Okay, so all this from a couple of words and the connections here. That's what the Balatram is pulling out. He's pulling out a lot of connections and a lot of musar, a lot of ethical teachings for us. And then it says, Samach din levoda. And why are we connecting laws, civil law, to temple service? Because the world stands on three things, right? It stands on avoda, din, and what's the third one? No. Is din, din, avoda, and then it's Pirkei Avot. I can't remember the last one. It's I can't remember it.
It's not mercy?
No, it's not mercy. It's I had it before. I just forgot it. Avoda. Loving kindness. That's what it was. Loving kindness. Okay, so the mercy would be different. Mercy is I have mercy on somebody, but loving kindness is I do things beyond. Gemilas chasadim. That's what it was. Gemilas chasadim. Acts of loving kindness. Okay, so those.
What's
So
the first one again?
din, judgment. I have to have that. Then I have avoda, the temple service, and then gemilas chasadim. So here you have two other things. So dinim avoda. I'm connecting the dinim, the law, civil law, to avoda. Shehem gimel she'olam ameda aleim, because that's two of the three things that the world stands upon. V'samachotam mizbech, and it's connected to the related to the mizbech. Lomar kol amamed dayan hagon. Anybody who appoints a proper judge, ki'ilu bana mizbech, it is considered as if he built a mizbech. Which is the opposite would be if we appoint a judge who is not proper. That's as if we planted an ashera, an idolatrous tree, near the mizbeach, near the altar. So again, this connection, this between the two parshiot, is really telling a lot of information to us, which we normally would not get because we're just going from week to week to week, and we're just going. Right? You're just thinking, okay, so we went from don't make an altar to with steps to, and these are the judgments. What's the connection? So the Baal HaTorah is telling you it's a lot of connections here, very deep, logical connections, and all based upon either gematria or acrostics. Okay, the codes, if you will, different types of codes that we're looking at. Okay, that's just the basic thing. So now let's get into the halacha, actually. It says, the next part, Kitikna eved ivri. So now, what happens? When a person buys a Hebrew slave, Sheish shanim yavod, for 6 years he will work, uvashviyat yedse lechavshi chinam. He will work for 6 years, and then the 7th year he will go out for free. What's going on there? So Rashi explains, Eved Shehu Ivri. We're talking about a Jewish slave. Or El Avdo Shalom Ivri. Maybe we don't, so Rashi is going to go through this whole Gemara language here. He says, but basically, let's just cut through that. He says it's talking about a Hebrew slave, and what happens, that he has to work for 6 years. When you buy him, who are you buying him from? Miyad Beitin Shmachruhu B'Gnevato. What happened was this person stole something. He stole money. So he didn't have money to pay back the person he stole from. He didn't have that much. Whatever he did, he sold it, he gambled it away. Bottom line is he doesn't have money. So now the Beit in the court sells him to a person, and and gets some money, and either pays off either they could sell it to the family too. You become a slave for the family.
Sells from the person he stole?
Well, he could be there, or he sells to anybody who wants to buy him. The question is if he stole.
Who would buy a thief though?
Oh, that's a good question. People did it. What they do is they buy him on the market because he's a strong guy, and then, whatever they want him for, maybe he's a good cook, and then they give money, and then the court will pay off whoever it was. But this person now has to work is in debtor's prison, if you will. He now has to work off his crime. So there were people who were willing to take the gamble of hiring this person. And it really is hiring more than buying him, because you can't have this Hebrew slave doing things that are against halacha. In other words, he has to still go to shul. Let's update this story. He still has to go to shul. He still has to be kosher. He still has to keep Shabbos, all the holidays. So really, he has a lot of time off from the things. You can't make him do things just to do things. They have to be for purpose. If you only have one bed, the slave gets a bed, you don't. So it's not so easy to acquire a slave, a Hebrew slave, as it were. Okay, but nonetheless, we're trying to give this slave, this person who stole something, another chance to pay off your debt and to go back on the straight and narrow. So what happens? He says, "Oh, eno elish." So that's one thing. Or the Rashi says, "Oh, eno elad mocha atzmo nedoko." Or maybe it's a person who sold himself because he was in an oppressed position. He had no choice. And then you're going to say that somebody who's sold by the beit and doesn't go out in the 6th year. And so he says, when it says later on in Vayikra that when your brother is poor amongst your nation, and he will sell himself and he will be sold to you, that's the case referring to when he sells himself, and they don't go because of a forced situation. So here, in this case, certainly we're talking about he was a thief who was sold by the court system, and even so, he's not indentured for life. He goes out in the Shemitah year. So if I would buy the guy in the 6th year, I only have 1 year's work.
So everyone buys the slaves probably right after the Shemitah year. There's a big market for.
Well, it could be any.
Big market for slaves right after the Shemitah year, because then you get your money's worth 6 years. Right?
No, you have to buy it at the market rate, whatever the market rate would be.
So I'm saying the price of the slaves probably goes up after the Shemitah year, and it slowly goes down as you.
Well, yeah, right. Because he has a debt he has to pay off, so it makes sense. Right, there was a set time, and if this slave would ever amass some money from, let's say he was working some other job, so he could pay himself off. Remember, all we want is his money. That's his teshuvah. So if you want to come up, if you hit the mega bucks, you can buy yourself out of slavery before the 6 years are up, because you paid the debt off. Or even if you sell yourself, I just have to pay off the amount of money that you spent on me. I'm working down a debt. So once I work it out, it's done. If Shemitah interrupts that, then it is over. So I'm not going to buy a slave in the 6th year for a lot of money, because it's just not worth my time. I'm going to wait. Either I'll give them money and get them out of that sort of debt, or help them out, whatever. But otherwise, it doesn't work that well. So like I said, he has to go to he has to go to freedom for free. Now it says, "Im begabo yafo." If he comes with just himself, he'll go out with his body. V'im ba'al yishahu. But let's say he's a married guy. V'yatsa ishto imo. His wife will go out with him. Whoa, what are you talking about? Why the wife go out? Why was the wife there to begin with? This guy stole, and now his wife is coming to slavery with him. Was it just because I have to imprison one person? I have to imprison everybody. And on top of that, I'm buying the slave. I don't want the wife. I don't want the kids. I don't want anybody else. What should I support so many people for? I'm supporting one. It's enough. So Rashi says, he asked that question, who brought this woman in that she has to go out? What the Torah is telling us is that when the slave was bought, since the slave... I'll read it. Shakona Eved Ivri Chayev. The one who acquires this Eved Ivri is obligated to feed his wife and children, unless they don't want to come in. They have a right. They don't have to come in. They can say, "I don't want to come in. I don't want to be with my husband. It's very nice. You stole. Leave me alone. I'm not going to be part of this adventure." And in that case, they don't have to be supported. Or even if they want to stay with the husband, they can still opt not to give their income to the master. Because what happens is, just as in a marriage, let's say the husband and wife are working, the wife, whatever the wife makes according to halacha, is the husband's. Why? Because the husband must support his wife. So since he has to support his wife, anything she's going to bring in goes to him. It just makes sense. If she would say, "I don't want your money, I don't want your support," then she can keep all her money. No problem. And let's say it would even work out that she made a mistake that really she needs. After she said, "I don't want your money, I don't want this, and I won't give you my money." If it works out that it was a bad deal on her part, she can retract that, even during the marriage, and he has to go back to supporting her. He, on the other hand, cannot retract if it doesn't go well for him. He can't, if he agrees that her money is not his, even if he loses his job, he can't say, honey, put it into the till. We have to support the family. Tough luck, we made a deal. So she's the only one who can pedal it back to what is normal, that she would give the money over. But otherwise not. So here, if she's willing to work for the master, by all means, then the master must support her. If not, the master does not have to support her. Okay, but so that's what we're learning from that area. And then it goes out. It says, "Im Adonai v'yiten lo yisha." Now, if his master gives him a wife, which type of wife we're talking about? Here we're talking about a shifa kananis, a non-Jewish wife. This person has a non-Jewish slave. That is his an eved Kanaanit. Okay, he has her for life and can pass her on to the children. So what happens is this guy has to be a married guy. You can only work with a married guy. So the slave who came in is married and he has his Jewish wife there. The odds are. And now if the master wants to have a whole brood of slaves, so what he does is he has his non-Jewish slave, this Jewish slave, have relations with this non-Jewish woman slave, and they'll have children. Okay, so what happens to those children? Isha v'yaldalo banim or banot. If the children are born to this woman, ha'isha v'ladeti yela adoneha. So then the woman and her children belong to the master. In other words, when the slave goes, the Hebrew slave goes, so he gets to leave because he's an Eved Ivri. He has a limited time. This Eved Kananis, she doesn't have a limited time. She's forever. We're on page 416. Okay, so 416. And so she's forever. So not only her, but her children, because that's what he wanted. He wanted to have a stable of slaves, if you will. So that's what he's doing. Again, he goes out by himself.
The slaves are free the Jubilee year, right?
Which slave?
The Kanani slaves.
No, they're never freed. The Eved Kanani is never freed.
3-year slaves in Jubilee year?
Only the Hebrew slaves.
Oh, wow.
Only Hebrew slaves. Never the non-Jewish slaves.
It's good that I converted.
There you go. You weren't anybody's slave.
For 6 years.
God forbid. We don't want you to steal, and we don't want you to become so poor that you have to sell yourself. So, but that's what it is. If an Eved Kanani would be forever, and her children would be forever, unless they're freed for whatever reason the master would have. He could free them, but he's going against a biblical injunction. You're not supposed to free them.
Can the Kanani slaves earn their freedom, like through agree on a price, but they don't get paid, right, for their work?
They can't. No. If the master abuses them by knocking out an eye or knocking out a tooth or hurting them, then they get their freedom. He can't abuse like a person, like in America when they would whip their slaves. Okay, that was against that was ridiculous what they were doing, raping, everything else. That was totally against Torah. Not that they were trying to follow Torah, but that would be against the Torah. We can't abuse them, but and because an Eved Kanani, let's not forget, an Eved Kanani was one step away from Judaism. They had to go through a mikvah, so they were semi-converted.
Okay.
And so they had to follow all the negative commandments of the Torah, and the positive, non-time-bound commandments they had to follow. So that was just part of the routine. So you're not going to treat them that badly. That's not what you want to do. And it's really it was to their benefit, because they were fed and so on and so forth. They were treated well in the world of Eved Kanani, much better than, again, what we would treat slaves in America or even where there's still slaves in Africa and other places.
Yeah,
Dubai, right. So we're treating them much better because they're still people. And again, the Torah protects them. Torah protects them greatly. So, yeah. Okay? So, now here we come to a case. V'yem amor yomar, if the slave, if the Hebrew slave, says, Ahavti et Adoni, I love my master, et ishti ve'banai, and my non-Jewish wife, and my non-Jewish children, or children. Lo, eitzei chavshi, I will not go out free. Now 6 years are coming up, 7th year. He decides, you know what, I don't want to go because I love my wife, this non-Jewish woman, I love my wife, and I love my children, so I don't want to go out. What happens? So then his master brings them to, and this is interesting, Ha-Elohim. What's the Ha-Elohim? It doesn't mean God. It means the judges. Elohim means judges. So he brings them to the judges. V'higisho el hadelet. You have the place or not? Okay, we're on 4:18 and it's verse 6. 6, right? So he brings them to the doorpost. Okay, to the door. O el hamezuzah, or to the doorpost. And he pierces. The master pierces his ear with an awl. Okay, there you go. Va'avado the olam, and he becomes his servant forever. How long is forever? Jubilee. It's all in forever. And that's what Rashi says. You can't keep
49 years maximum, right?
Yeah, 49 years maximum.
Probably less.
Probably much less. So he says, "V'avadol olam ad Yovel is only until Yovel." And okay, so that's how do we know that? Because it says in Vayikra v'ish el mishpato tashuvu that a person returns to his family. Magid shemachamishim shana kroim olam. So we learn from this that 50 years is considered forever. Okay, so then again, one can only be a slave, a Hebrew slave, until Yovel. Avikanani forever. Okay. So now the question is, why are they going through this whole process of bringing him to a door or to the mezuzah? Why do that? The guy says, "I want to be your slave. I love you. I love my wife. I love my children." So the Torah says, "Okay, bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and bring him and bore him in the ear with your awl." So,
because that's a place you can do it.
Say it again.
That's a place you can do it.
Why specifically there? You can do it anywhere.
Oh, I don't know why there, but that's a place.
Okay, so that's the question.
Does
So
it bore him to the doorpost?
no, it's just to the doorpost. You just bring him to the doorpost.
He doesn't bore him to the doorpost, so he's stuck on the doorpost.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so it's,
You get the thing.
he just gives he just pierces his ear.
Okay.
At the
Okay.
doorpost, but not into
Right.
the doorpost.
Right, no, he's not going to stay there the rest of his life. He has to do work.
No, but I thought it was up against the doorpost. Just right there. It's on the doorpost. So it's on. Something.
Which part of the ear does he pierce?
Oh, so we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. So it says, Rashi explains, "Yechol yehei mezuzah kasher l'tzura." You want to tell me that the mezuzah is something that you can really bore onto it? Talmud lo mevatata v'azno v'delet v'lo mezuzah. It should be on the door, not the mezuzah. So what we come to say, "Oh, el mezuzah hekish deret the mezuzah." What they're doing is making a connection. Ma mezuzah mu'umad av delet mu'umad. So just as the mezuzah must be standing, has to be standing upright, so also the door. Now what happens is he bores him with this hayaman at the right ear. The right ear is what he bores. And we know that because of the connection to the what goes on with the Mitzorah and so on and so forth. Fine. So now we get to a reason. Amar Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, this is from the Mechilta. He says, Ozen Zot, Shesham al Har Sinai lo tiknov. This ear that was heard from at atop Mount Sinai, the commandment of lo tignov, do not steal, v'halach v'ganav, and this one went and stole, tirtza. He has to get his ear pierced. That's the word. That's why the ear is picked. V'yemocher atzmo, Ozen Sheshama, and if he sells himself, Ozen Sheshama al Har Sinai. So now the ear that heard atop Mount Sinai, Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim, because the b'nei Yisrael are servants to me. V'halach v'kana adon la'atzmo, and this one went and acquired a master for himself. Tirza, again, you should pierce his ear. Rabbi Shimon haya dorish mikra zeh min chomer, and it says, "Man nishtanu delet mezuzah." What's different from the delet and the door mezuzah? Mikol kelim shababayit, from all the other vessels in the house. So Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, "Delet mezuzah shayu edem Misrayim." This door, because they put blood on the door and the doorposts, that were witnesses to what happened in Mitzrayim. Kishupasachti al hamashkov, when I passed over on these doors. Velshtem Zuzot Vemarti Kili b'nei Yisrael avadim avadayim velo avdim avadim, and I said that these Jews are my servants and not servants to servants. Valach zevakana adon le'atzmo yirtza b'faneiim, and this one went and acquired a servant for himself. He went enough. He acquired for himself a servant. So then again, Yirtza b'fneim, you should bore it before him. And then we also touch on he should be a slave forever, and that's what we'll have to stop.
Does he bore the top part of the ear or the bottom part of the ear?
The bottom. The bottom.